And that's right. We are back for another episode of the Real Leel Show, and it's going down just so you know. Okay, say it ain't so. I'm here and I care, and have no fear. The champ is here. We are back for another stack show, and it's going down with these topics, man. NBA playoffs. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. True answers are being found out. The real is here. The fake is gone. All right, game 7 tonight. Obviously, a lot to discuss there. We're gonna see who the real and the fake ones are. We seeing it already, and the fake ones are home and the real ones are still alive. And you know what? I am excited to talk about those type of content, obviously, because I'm a sports fan. MVP, SGA, back to back. I got a lot to say about that. Also the NFL schedule release later on down in the show. We're gonna talk about that as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because it's going down. And yeah, we might as well get this show started. The game is about to be underway, so I want to, knock out these topics and speak my piece along with the co-host that I have on this show. I got my guy Zay back, from 99 Pod, and obviously when the schedules align with me, him, and Zach, we'll produce more content on there. But Zay, it's been a minute. I want to start off with you. How you feeling? What's the vibes looking like?
Hey, man, it's a beautiful weekend, beautiful day, 80-some degrees. It was lovely out here in New York, but I'm glad to be on this show. It's always a great time talking sports with Leel. Always a great time talking sports with Lee. Explosive playoffs so far. MVP just got announced. We're going to talk about that in a few seconds, but appreciate you allowing me back on this platform. Always a great time talking sports. I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, man, you always welcome on per usual. And I got my guy Lee in the building. Lee, how you feeling, man? What's the vibes?
Man, it's good. Still up here in B-more for a little while longer. Beautiful day, like Zay said. Beautiful day in the Northeast, man. And I'm interested in these topics. I'm ready to go. I'm on 10. So let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, man, it's a hot day, but it's about to be a hot show. My New York Knickerbockers play Tuesday, right? Right now, we sitting back, popcorn. I just want to let this be known. I know we're going to talk about this in topic 2. I do not care who we play. All right. I don't care who we play. At the end of the day, we have to take care of business, and I'm pretty sure we will. I believe in this next team this year. Okay. I believe we found something. We'll get to that later. I do want to talk about the MVP to kick us off right now because SGA won his second straight MVP. Did the NBA get it right, though? Zay, if you want to kick us off, the mic is yours.
You had 3 viable options here. You had Wemby, you had Nikola Jokic, you had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You also had Luka Doncic, who had a phenomenal season before that injury hampered, derailed his season completely. I think they did get it right, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being the MVP. When you talk about Oklahoma City and what they've done again this season with Jalen Williams not on the floor, unhealthy. And then you look at the field, how did Shai essentially enhance their play to make them look viable all season long? Not only did iHeart look great, but you have to look at AJ Mitchell. You got to look at Isaiah Joe. You got to look at a Caruso. You got to look at a lot of the guys, McCain coming in and just seemingly fitting with this team alongside of SGA getting 30, shooting 50-something% from the field. Believe he averaged 7 assists or something like that in that nature. He had a phenomenal season, and you can't take that away from him. I know people are going to say, well, what about Wemby? He had a great year as well. Look at what the Spurs did. You got to look at Jokic. Well, his numbers, again, it seems like no matter what he does, the goalposts will constantly be moved. But he had another phenomenal season. Why is SGA that player? Because you can make the argument SGA is the most dominating player in this league. No matter what he does, he's going to get his points. He's going to get 30. He's going to get to the free throw line, and there's nothing you can do about it. Very similar to what James Harden did not too long ago in Houston. He's going to score points. There's nothing you can do about it, and there's nobody that can stay in front of him long enough to prevent him from doing what he does best, and that is scoring buckets for his team. I think the NBA did a fantastic job once again electing him to be the second straight MVP for the NBA.
Lee, I'll let you get right in here, man.
No, Zay hit it on the head. I think SGA is the best closer in basketball, right? I think when the game is on the line and you put the ball in his hands, he closes. He shuts the deal. And more times than not, this year, he's closed the door, and the Thunder have won. And so Wemby had a phenomenal season. I mean, 25, 11, and 3. You can't sneeze at that. He won Defensive Player of the Year. I think that was appropriate as well. There are MVPs in his future. Certainly there are. But for what the Thunder did, coming back, really holding their own, and injuries to the team, the one constant was SGA doing what he does best. And so I think they got it right. I kind of said that all year, Leel. We talked about it. Zay threw out a couple of names. I want to throw Jaylen Brown's name in there as well. He had a phenomenal season for the Celtics. I never thought Luka was a viable candidate for MVP. I know the Lakers ran off games late in the season, but his defense and things of that nature, he's just not a two-way player for me. But no, I think SGA winning it was the correct thing to do. I knew that was going to happen. But Wemby he can have something to say, Leo, in our third topic by knocking them off in the Western Conference Finals and claiming to be the real MVP. But for the regular season, I think SGA, it was the right thing.
Look, I think the NBA got it wrong, if you ask me. And look, 3 viable candidates like Zay alluded to. Look, paper told me SGA was the MVP. Paper. Okay, paper told me that SGA was the MVP, but my eyes sold to me that Victor Wembanyama was the MVP for this season. Now, paper, eyes, anybody who knows me, I like to lean more with my eyes than paper. And I think when you talk about the word, value, to me, that's a more, eye test driven stat than it is, stats itself when you talk about value. Because obviously, if you're looking at stats, the MVP, clearly they got it right with SGA. I mean, averaging 31 points per game, 6.6 assists per game, and 4.3 rebounds. Obviously, he takes over the game in the fourth quarter. But when you talk about value, right, now we get to a different conversation because there's nobody in the league, in my opinion, based off my own 2 eyes, that dominate every minute of the game like Victor Wembanyama. And sometimes the stat sheet doesn't show how completely controlling he is in the flow of the game, the way how he forces teams to shy away from attacking the paint. Like, there's nothing you can do about him on the floor. Mind you, the stats were good. So it's not like I'm stiff-arming stats here. 25 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, 3.1 blocks. The stats are there. But when you talk about your eyes, when you talk about value, when you talk about impact in every single possessions on both sides of the ball, I mean, come on. Since February 1st, the Spurs lost 3 games that Victor Wembanyama started and finished. Only 3 since February 1. Now, and listen, I said this before, I'm going to reiterate it. Wemby's age was always going to be the roadblock in this MVP conversation. Wemby is 22 years old. The last person, I believe the youngest person to win the award was Derrick Rose. He was a couple years older than Wemby. He was 22, but a couple months older than Wemby. He won the award, right? That was 2011. That was years ago. So obviously, this award is not friendly to the first or second year, 22-year-old, 21-year-old player, obviously. So to me, that was always going to be a mountain he had to climb. Oh, yeah, we can give you Defensive Player of the Year and then give SGA the more prestigious award. You're going to be here. You have a long career. You're going to win more in your future. And even when you start winning, you might not be able to lose the award because he's the type of guy that as long as he's healthy, it's going to be hard for me not to see him win multiple MVPs in the future. So I think what happened here was the NBA just didn't prioritize defense enough in the game. And that's just the reality. I got to call a spade a spade. And when he came out on his politicking tour, he was absolutely correct because a lot of people look at the stats. They look at points per game. They look at offense, but they don't understand. Well, they understand it to some extent, but I'll talk about the hypocrisy in my second lap. I'll let Zay get back in here if he wants.
Of course. I want to tell you the exact moment Wemby lost the MVP race. And it was in the NBA Cup against the New York Knicks. The way that Spurs team looked and they played against the New York Knicks, that's exactly when Wemby lost that MVP race. And people are going to say, whoa, that's so early. Why all the way back then? Because at that particular moment, it was SGA's MVP to lose, And once Wemby got out of the race, they weren't giving Jokic another MVP. Reason being, Jokic is so amazing, the goalpost gets moved every single time. The only other way Jokic would have won an MVP is if he averaged 5 to 6 blocks per game. Because the only knock they have is he doesn't play defense. Outside of that, Jokic was never going to be in the running to get the MVP between SGA and Wemby, despite Jokic's numbers being as they are. I believe he averaged 28, 10, and 10 this year, if I'm not mistaken. Shooting 50 from the field, 40 from the three, and yet he wasn't even considered for this MVP. It was SGA and Wemby to lose, with Jaylen Brown being a dark horse. Because Jaylen Brown and what he did with that Celtics team, like Lee Jones highlighted, was phenomenal. That team wasn't even expected to make the playoffs. They were top in the East, one of the top 2 teams in the East. So the fact that when we look at Wemby and what he's done this season, despite being spectacular, you had a chance to win an NBA Cup championship. Rather we consider it a glamorous thing or not. It's a title on the line, and you played at that level, and you played below what people expected you to do. So now when people considering MVP, they're looking at, okay, yeah, he had 25, 30 points a game. Yeah, he had 7, 8 rebounds a game. He had all these blocks. He's a defensive astronaut on the court. He's everywhere at the same time. But when we go look back at the NBA Cup, we saw what he did. He didn't live up to the standard that we expected him to be. And they held that against him all the way to the MVP. Because like you said, though, since February, Spurs only lost 3 games. And this entire season, Wemby has played phenomenal basketball. But how the heck does SGA get it over him? Because time and time again, from beginning to end of the season, clutch shots, SGA is there making the call. In overtime, SGA is making that call. He's making the clutch points. He's making the clutch decisions. He's playing defense. He's doing everything throughout the entirety of the season. So despite Wemby having such a phenomenal second half, it was not enough to clear that image we got of him in that NBA Cup. And this is why they gave SGA that second MVP, because that consistency that he gave us all the way through.
I want to add this point, and then Lee, you could bring us home. Because to me, and this is my point that I was going to continue on with Victor Wembanyama, but I didn't want to make that lap too long. I was saying that we don't value defense, right, in the NBA. But you look at the last couple of Defensive Player of the Year winners. Victor Wembanyama, obviously this year. Last year, Evan Mobley. The year before that, Rudy Gobert. The year before that, Jaren Jackson. You know why all those guys back to back won the award? Because they provided elite rim protection and shot blocking. Now, some of those guys can guard 1 through 5. Not all. Obviously, you slick Rudy Gobert into that pick and roll, and then he's on roller skates. He's in the blender. Okay, can't get to heaven on roller skates, right? But because of elite shot blocking and rim protection, those guys mainly won the award. Now, if we are saying that there's so much value in having elite rim protection and shot blocking that we can pick those guys over elite perimeter defenders that can stay in front of you, that can guard you on a 3-point line. We value those attributes more than that. Then that says the value in itself. But we're not even talking about offensively and what Wemby did offensively. Because you look at those same guys that I named, Jaren Jackson, Rudy Gobert, look at the numbers. The year they won those Defensive Player of the Years, Jaren Jackson, 18 points per game. Evan Mobley, 18.5 points per game. Rudy Gobert, 14 points per game. Okay, but guess what? Victor Wembanyama, 25 points per game. So at the end of the day, Victor Wembanyama, and my point being, is that he is impacted the game on both ends of the floor. And we value rim protection. We value shot blocking. We put it to a high standard because we pick those guys over elite perimeter defenders. Why OG can't get it? Okay? He's an elite perimeter defender. Why? Look at his value. Why he don't get it? Because there's value in those two attributes that I alluded to. Victor Wembanyama is doing that on a whole different level. Plus, he's giving you buckets. Plus, he's a 3-level scorer on the offensive end. To me, I don't understand how we can't look at the fact that he dominates every single possession, or at least controls the game in some part, even when he's not scoring, even when he's not blocking his shot. Just the fact that Wemby's there is going to alter the shot. To me, that's value. And we talking about most valuable player. To me, that's Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, Leel, good points. Very good points. First of all, shout out to my guy Ray Blackwell. He's saying that he believes Wemby is the MVP. But let me say this: he might have lost in the regular season, but he'll get in the playoffs. That's a good point, Ray. He can prove himself in the playoffs. But the only MVP, Leel, that has been a dominant defensive player, it has been Bill Russell. Now, I'm not saying that defense is not important. Wemby certainly affects the game like no other, even as a young player right now. But this is a point I want you and Zay to think about real quick. When you look at, if you remove SGA from Oklahoma City, what they would be, right? And when you remove Wemby from San Antonio, what they are, then we talk about value.
I mean, but to be
the
fair,
value that SGA brings, his closing and what he does for Oklahoma City, to me, is more valuable than San Antonio. Those guys now, don't get me wrong, they're a much better team with Wemby than without, but they still perform. OKC without SGA, they're not making the playoffs. And so the most valuable player and what SGA does, how he closes, what he was in the second half of the season, what he's been in these playoffs, hey, to me, he's the MVP, and that's no slight on Wemby because everything you said about Wemby is absolutely true. And all he's going to do is get better and better and better. But for this year, I got to go with SGA.
We can end there because, obviously we got more topics to go. I would just say that when you talk about subtracting a player from a team and talking about what their success would be like, let's be real. You need those type of guys in the playoffs. You need an SGA if you're going to win a championship. You need a Victor Wembanyama if you're going to win the championship if you're the Spurs. Regular season is being proven time and time again that, yeah, sure, it matters, but at the same time, it's almost like whip up the paper and throw it out. Okay, I mean, look at the Knicks. We're a totally different team than we were in the regular season. I mean, it shows us time and time again. So to me, even though the Spurs were looking good without Victor, come on, they needed him. I mean, they lost that. I believe they lost that game that he got ejected, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I mean, come on, they need Victor Wembanyama. Playoffs is different basketball, point blank, period. So, and I can say the same thing with SGA. But let me know who y'all think is the real MVP. Do you think that the NBA got it right? Or do you think Victor Wembanyama was snubbed? Anyway, we are going to move on to topic number 2. We got Cleveland versus Detroit tonight at the time we recording this show. Who will win? And who should the Knicks prefer to play? And Lee, I'll let you go this time.
Yeah, game 7. I think Cleveland had their chance. Cleveland had their chance the last game. They laid an egg. I think they go back to Detroit tonight. The atmosphere, it's going to be a big, big player atmosphere. You got to bring it tonight. And we know that James Harden in these type of situations have always folded, right? He's always folded. Donovan Mitchell, I think he's a very good player. You know how my feelings on him, but I don't feel he's a superstar. And you need a superstar to perform tonight to bring it home on the road in Detroit. So for me, I think it's Detroit winning game 7. I think Durham came on a bit last game. I think he needs to perform. I think Cade's going to be Cade. So I like Detroit tonight. I don't particularly think it's going to be that close. I think Detroit running away with it a little bit, double-digit win for my taste. As far as who the Knicks should want to play, the Knicks should want to play Cleveland. I think it would be a more offensive game against Cleveland. I think that bodes well for the Knicks by a more open game, a more up and down pace with the Knicks against Cleveland. The Knicks against Detroit will be knocked down, drag out. As you saw in the regular season, it's a different ball game. It's a slower game. And so that doesn't bode as well. So I think the Knicks would want to play Cleveland. I think it's a different ball game against Detroit. And so we'll see, but I think it's going to be the Knicks in Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Zay, I'll let you go, man.
Yeah, I think, between Cleveland and Detroit, this 7, I think, Detroit won this game at 6 when they took the heart out in their home court and came back to Detroit and said, come play us now for fun, because you can't lose at home in that fashion. You won your first road game this entire playoffs in a fashion that was a must-win game. You got it. Now you're going back home, supposed to close it out. You're going back home. And this is the second time this playoffs Detroit went to the opposing team's house in a win or lose situation and took that game back from them in a dominant fashion. And now you're going back to Detroit with momentum. And this is not where you want to be if you're Cleveland. Cleveland is going to need to do something they haven't done yet, which is be consistent. So I got Detroit winning here. They're just more physically imposing for this Cleveland team. And I think it shows on a Evan Mobley, and it shows on a James Harden who fumbles the ball randomly and is looking for the ref to save him in situations he shouldn't. You're supposed to be the star player. You're supposed to be a guy who's getting paid max dollars, and you're playing like a role player. You're playing like a guy who doesn't know how to hoop through physicality. And it's ridiculous. But I think Detroit wins here. I think they're too much for Cleveland at the moment. Who should the Knicks want to play? Again, I think the Knicks should want to play Detroit Pistons. When you look at what the Knicks are able to do and what they've been doing this entire playoffs, they've been playing both sides of the ball in physical fashion. And both offensively and defensively, they're inviting the contact, something we haven't seen them do the entirety of the season. But the postseason, they flip the switch and inviting contact. Every bucket is gritty. Every bucket is hard fought. And they're playing at a higher level than they have been, and which is where going against Detroit, which they have been trying to do that to each team, Orlando Magic and Cleveland, and been successful at. I don't think they'll be successful against the Knicks. I think the Knicks want the tougher competition. I think if we see if Cleveland somehow beats Detroit and the Knicks play Cleveland, it's an easier route. And I think that's something they don't want going into what potentially could be an NBA Finals appearance. They want to see the tougher competition. They're tired of the noise of Detroit running the East, that Detroit is the team to beat, and Detroit's going to an NBA Finals if they see the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're tired of hearing it. They want to face that challenge. They want to show the world why the Knicks are the team to beat in the East, and that's the team they want to see.
I mean, good points. I mean, look, I think the Pistons win this game. I think we're all in agreement here. And I think we'll play the Knicks. I mean, they'll play the Knicks, obviously. And I think the Knicks beat both of these teams. I think the Knicks will clear Cleveland in 5. I think the Pistons will get cleared in 6. That doesn't mean that means I prefer Cleveland because I believe that they're going to beat Cleveland in an earlier game, right? I think, there's more context there. I think a lot of both of these two teams have a lot of postseason mileage. And I think the fall of Jalen Duran is making me not fear Detroit as I once did, because he was a different type of player in the regular season. He was that 1B to Cade, or number 2 rather to Cade. And he was averaging 19.5 rebounds and 19 points per game and 10.5 rebounds. But I mean, he was dominated all series. Game 6, he had a flashback type of game where he dominated Mobley off of the dribble in isolation, attacked him very early and often throughout that game. I think this game 7 will be the battle of force. Cade Cunningham is going to do what he do. I'm not worried about that. I think Donovan Mitchell is due for a bounce back game. He had a sleeper in game 6. But I think it's going to come down to the bigs and who could win the matchup of the bigs. And if Jared Allen and Evan Mobley gets punished like how they did in game 6, mind you, they've been dominating this series, over, Durant. But who dominates tonight is going to win. I just think that the Pistons, again, winning that game 6, I think it's over for the Cavaliers, and I think they'll win and move on to play us. Now, when you talk about the Knicks and who we should prefer to play, I don't have a mentality of fear. It's funny because we as a fans, I know I did. I wanted Toronto round 1. We got the Hawks, but guess what? We beat the Hawks in 6. And where we really revamped our identity, it was no contest. It was a contest early on when we stopped playing games and we revamped our offense. It was no contest. I know I wanted Boston. Well, guess what? Philly, we swept them. We got Philly, we swept them. So I say that to say, even though on paper to me, it's easy. The Cavaliers, we should prefer them because, yeah, sure, we can get into a shootout, but they're not going to outscore us. Defensively, the Pistons are a clear superior team. I mean, we can't really haunt anybody on the Pistons offensively because they got elite defenders there. But with that being said, I want to be tested. Right? The Hawks, think about it. If we got the Raptors early on, we probably would have swept them. But I don't know if we would have found this new identity that we had. The Hawks being the tougher challenge and us being down 2-1 forced us to dig deep and make adjustments. And for Mike Brown to wake up, and it woke up the Bears. So sometimes having it, next round is not always good. It's not always a good thing. So although I think the Cavaliers should be the preferable matchup based off paper, I'm not sure if I'm willing to say that. I think the Pistons, if they're going to push us, right, if they're going to bug us defensively, sure, we'll take that because guess what? The finals opponent ain't going to be easy, bro. The Thunder ain't going to be an easy team for sure. All right, the Spurs is not going to be an easy team for sure either. So to me, you take with that what you will.
Leel, it's going to be, but this is what I want all of my New Yorkers to understand. And I like the Knicks. I'm a big Brunson fan, but this is what I want people that are rooting for the Knicks to understand. Atlanta and Philly, totally different from what they're about to see against Detroit. Much more physical game. It's more of a physical, mental game with Cat, as well as Cat has been playing. It's a totally different circumstance with Cat. Brunson is going to be Brunson. I don't worry about Brunson for the Knicks. Whatever situation he's in, he's going to perform. I love that young man's mentality. But Bridges, Cat, it's a totally different game, a different mentality, a physical nature that they're going to have to ramp up, totally different than Atlanta and the 76ers presented to them. That's why I think this is a series that could go 7 games, because that mentality, they've been having a lot of space to do what they wanted to do in these games. That's why they've looked so good. Defensively, they haven't had a challenge. They're going to have a challenge against Detroit.
And Detroit going to have a challenge against us. I know they've been busting our ass in the regular season. We a totally different team. That's like a guy that you bullied in high school and then he gets jacked up. That's like the bad boy Pistons bullying Michael and Michael getting in the lab and coming back and busting their ass. That's us. We a totally different team. What Mike Brown did with Karl Anthony Towns, turning him into a pocket passing point setter, we haven't lost a game since he did that. All right. And last year, you look at the numbers. I mean, you look at the assists. He had 24 assists in total in 18 playoff games. He's tripled that. 66 assists in 10 playoff games. It has opened up our entire flow of the offense. So now it's not Jalen Brunson-centric, Julio-centric type of offense now. It's actually a free-flowing, everybody eats type of Last Supper dinner, pretty much. So to me, yeah, we could talk about how the Pistons bust our butts in, with the playoffs and how they took us to a hard-fought Game 6 last year. We a totally different team, buddy. So if they think they're going to see the same Knicks team that they saw in the regular season and last year, I'm sorry to break it to them, but they're sadly mistaken. So, yeah, for me, I would prefer the Cavaliers on paper because I think that's a easier matchup. But I also want to be tight if we had to play Detroit because, again, we need to be tested, and they will test us, sure. But that's what we need. This is not supposed to be easy this far in the playoffs, okay? Yeah, sure, round 1, we made it look easy. It wasn't an easy matchup. The Hawks were always a dangerous team. They played the second half of the NBA regular season. They were one of the best teams in basketball. But, yeah, we made it look easy once we made the adjustments. But we can't forget about the first 2 games. It was a close game back and forth. We made it look easy. The 76ers, y'all called them, oh, they were so dangerous. Oh, my God, Embiid and Maxey and poor George is cooking up. But guess what? We made it look easy. Yeah, they were still dangerous. Just because we beat them 4-0 didn't just wipe away the fact that they were down 3-1 against Boston and came back and beat Boston 3 times in their home. So, yeah, we just can't because we always moving the goalposts with the Knicks. We can't win for lose. Every time, oh, yeah, they were a bad team anyway. No, stop with these narratives. Detroit is a good team. Cleveland is a good team. And that's just what it is. And we're going to make the finals. Point blank, period.
Real quick, I just want to say something real quick. In terms of X's and O's, right? Lee is right. Detroit is a more physically team, but we're talking about physically imposing. Cleveland has Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, 2 7-footers, and one's extremely mobile. Now, they're not the most physical players, but they do create a lot of different mismatches for other teams, which could hinder a Knicks, could hinder a Detroit Pistons team, and so on and so forth. Even if let's say Cleveland was to go on to the finals, they can hinder OKC or San Antonio because of their height in that front court. The only thing, again, and I stress this enough, is because when you have a team like Detroit who is willing to be physical for 48 minutes and not worry about the foul, not worry about the whistle, that is a dangerous team because of their willingness to be physical. But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, I don't think Detroit is more talented top to bottom than Cleveland, Knicks, OKC, or San Antonio, but they have a stronger will than majority of those teams I just named in terms of being defensive minded and hustling and playing until that last second of the fourth. That's why they were given a lot of different opportunities to thrive on Game 6 against Cleveland on the road. Game 6 against Orlando on the road is because they're willing to have the heart to play all the way up to the last second. No, even when they're down points, even when they are down, 20 points against Orlando, came back and had a spectacular run. That is their danger, is that they have heart, which is great because the Knicks, one thing the Knicks love to do is rip the heart out of a team that feels courageous. And I think that's something we've seen in these playoffs. They took the heart from Philly, they took the heart from Atlanta, and they're going to want to play the same gritty game against Detroit. It's going to be a 90s basketball series, and I'm going to love every second of it. They're going to rip the hearts out of Detroit to get into the NBA Finals.
That all great. Real quick before you go, great point, Zay, and that's what I'm talking about this game. I like the Knicks because I think the Knicks can in 7 they could go back to Detroit and win on Detroit's home court. So I think that Knicks win in 7. But this series is going to be totally different, more low scoring and physical. And Leo, you made some great points about Cat and the point forward. Cat was blowing by Embiid like he was, like I was doing, and that's not going to happen in this series. So we're going to see if the adjustments the Knicks can make to the pressure that Detroit's going to put on them. How do they proceed? And it's going to take 2 or 3 games for them to figure out, coming off of these series against Atlanta and Philly, how to play Detroit. I think ultimately they win in 7, but it's going to be a very, very good physical, and to Zay's point, 90s type of series.
Last point, and we can make this quick because we still got 3 more topics that we got to steamroll. These were the 2 longer topics. The other ones is, let's bang them out. But I would say this last point, and this is a question for both of you guys very quickly. Are we concerned about the amount of rest that we've been getting? Obviously about to be 9 games, 9 days of rest, 10, or, one of those numbers there. A lot of days off, obviously. But we know last year we probably felt postseason burnout because of the minutes that we played under Tom Thibodeau. So obviously, yeah, sure, we want rest. I think the ideal rest is about 3-4 days off. This is a long time. Do we feel that this will disrupt the flow of the offense, or do you think that it will take, maybe a half for us to get going, and, hopefully we keep the game in distance, and then the second half, everything is back to normal? How do we feel about the rest that the Knicks is getting?
I don't think it's going to hurt them because Detroit is not a up and down team. They're more of a slower paced team, Leel. And so the rest, it's about the adjustment, right? Because Detroit's going to have to adjust to an explosive New York team as well. That's why I say it's going to take 2 to 3 games to fill each other out. So the Knicks are going to come out. Brunson's going to be Brunson. They're going to get up and down. Detroit coming off of a more, physical series with Cleveland, emotional series. They still have to get back up to a Knicks team. I don't think it's going to matter as much as people might think having those days off.
All right. Let's move on to the next topic that we have here, and let's talk about the Spurs and the Thunder. Because one matchup that we do know as of this time that we're shooting this episode is that matchup in the Western Conference. Who will win the matchup? And Zay, I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah, I think with the Spurs dominating them this entire season, I think in the Western Conference Finals, I'm gonna give it to OKC. Reason being, I think the experienced team goes further. I think Spurs are a fantastic team. I think they have the youth with Castle and Dylan Harper for the future. That's going to become an amazing backcourt tandem. I understand that you have Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes as the veteran wings. I just don't think they have enough for what OKC has in store for them. When you got Lou Dort doing one-legged fadeaway mid-range shots, and you got Caruso shooting threes like nobody's business. You got Jeremy McCain coming off the bench. It's a lot of talent that you have to deal with for 7 games. I understand you win a game or two in a regular season with days off and sporadic scheduling. But when you talk about a 7-game series, a team knows exactly what you're going to do all 7 games. How do you stop it? What do we have in store for them? I don't know if San Antonio has another gear. I know OKC does. Don't know if San Antonio has an extra gear for them. And I think as well, if I'm not mistaken, Jalen Williams was out for majority, if not all, of the games in against them in the season series. Yep. So that's another component that we don't take into account that is going to be a huge factor into this series. Give me OKC to win. I think it goes 6 games. I know Wemby's going to have fire in that first game, losing MVP. But I think other than that, it's going to be the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander show. Everyone stay tuned and watch how that goes.
Lee, you up, man?
I think it's a 7-game series. I really do. I think San Antonio is going to give OKC all that they can handle and then some. And I wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio beats them. I really wouldn't. Look, I want to see Wemby down in the post. If San Antonio puts Wemby in the spot down on the post, I think they win. If he plays inside more than out on the perimeter, I think they win because they have no answer, and he will get their bigs into foul trouble, right? When Wemby's out on the perimeter shooting threes, I mean, he's a talented big guy, but when you have him down on the post catching lobs and on that box, San Antonio is an entirely different team. Let Vassell and all of those guys and Harper and them do their thing on the perimeter. Get Wemby down there, get them into foul trouble, get to the free throw line, and San Antonio can win the series. I think it's 7 games, Leel. I in a 7th game, I always go with the best player on the court. And so I'm going to go with the MVP in Game 7, SGA, Oklahoma City winning in Game 7. But if you give me Wemby on the block, playing down low a little bit more, it's going to be tough on OKC every game.
Yeah, look, it's the Thunder is a tough team. And yeah, you got a great player in SGA, the MVP imposter. Like I said, I think the real MVP is on the other side. But both teams are built well. These 2 teams is going to be the class of the conference for the next couple of years. You know, they built really well. I just think the Thunder is just built ideally as far as like the blueprint. This is how you follow. This is how you build a team with size, athleticism, speed. That's good on both sides of the ball. You know, really no holes that much in the game, in their game. So I think that and then they get Jalen Williams back. You know, so it's going to be a tough out. I mean, they literally cakewalk throughout the whole entire thing. But let me say this about the Spurs. They're going to make it a competitive series. You know, the Lakers, they didn't have the athleticism that the Spurs have. They didn't have the firepower that the Spurs got. And yet, in those first half of ball games, they made it relatively competitive in almost every game they played in the first half. The Thunder was just too much for them. And it's really a lot to ask of LeBron James at his age to really will his team to victory in the second half. Of course, it was going to be an avalanche in that 4th quarter. The Spurs can fight fire with fire. They are very good, but I just think the Thunder is too much. I think the Thunder will win this game in a very entertaining 6-game series. I think it's going to go 6, actually. And yeah, I think the Thunder is going to advance to the finals, but the Spurs is going to take this defeat and they're going to learn from it. Victor Wembanyama is going to be mad that he didn't get the MVP nod, even though he should have. And next year, they watch out. That's all I'm going to say. So, yeah, I got the Thunder winning this series in 6 games. All right, we are gonna move on. Keep it moving here. Should the T Wolves go all in for Giannis after losing to the Spurs? And Lee, I'll let you go first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100% they should go all in. Look, Minnesota has a lot of good players. They have a lot of good trade pieces that I think Milwaukee would love to get and throw in some draft picks. But I think, for what Milwaukee is, they topped out, right? They're not better than the Thunder. They're not better than San Antonio. I think they're on the same par, maybe a little better than Denver. They're not in a position with the way the team is currently constructed to win a championship. So you go all in for Giannis. People say Giannis gets injured. Yeah, he might get an injury, but he's a dominant player that will take maximum pressure off of Anthony Edwards. So, yeah, they should give up whatever they need to give up. McDaniel, Naz Reid, whoever else that they need to give up, they need to give up. They have a deep team. They have a deep roster, but they need to go all in and get Giannis. I think Giannis and Anthony Edwards are good friends. They have a great relationship. I think, yes, they need to go all in. I would be the leading candidate, and I would negotiate with Milwaukee until they have to say, yes, I want this deal, and I'd bring Giannis to Minnesota.
Look, I would say this. I think the season in totality, before I do talk about Giannis, is a mixed bag for the Timberwolves. I thought they had some impressive things to really hold on to. Like, for example, finishing off Denver when they lost Anthony Edwards, when they lost Dante DiVincenzo. They seen playoff development from Jaden McDaniels and Ao DeSumo. And they even stole that game one with Anthony Edwards. We didn't even know if Anthony Edwards would play in the second game, much less the first game. And obviously, clearly not 100%. They stole that game. So you saw a season of resilience, obviously beating Denver, who I thought was the better team in the first round. But then you look at the negatives. You look at the stretches that Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle had, where especially in that closeout game, with your season on the line, they combined to give you 3 points in that whole entire ball game. And then you look at the roster construction. You look at them taking a step back when they lost Cat. I mean, you look at the trade now from a microscope. The Knicks robbed and fleeced the Timberwolves. I mean, look at what Cat is doing right now, and look at their roster now. They really don't have somebody to space the floor, especially when Dante went down. So now you look at Wemby guarding the rim, and obviously Anthony Edwards having the ball. Then where's your other contributions? Who's giving you that floor spacing? And obviously you can't really find those guys. So to me, they do need to make a trade. I just think when you talk about Giannis, and you talk about a Giannis trade, to me, if they would have made a trade, it would have been Kevin Durant before Kevin Durant went to Houston. I thought Kevin Durant would have been a better fit personally. But I just think Giannis, if you do Giannis trade, then you're probably going to have to trade Jaden McDaniels, who clearly took a step up in his playoff development, clearly, definitely. So now he got to be a part of the deal. So now you lose him. Then you bring Giannis. Now you don't have that much left on your roster. To me, the safer play would be to get somebody like Kyrie Irving. We know that the Mavericks is going to blow everything up with Masai Ujiri. Clearly, they're going to build around Cooper Flag. Get you a guy like Kyrie Irving or something like that and try to keep your depth, because to blow it up for Giannis, who's 35 years old, injury prone, to limit your roster. That's why I think that any Giannis trade is a risky trade for anybody. And I know people shove that in New York face or whatever. I don't want to have a conversation about Giannis in New York right now at all, because any type of Giannis trade, you're getting a great player. Don't get me wrong, one of the top players in the league, but you're getting a guy that's 35 years old, who's injury prone, who's probably going to gut out your roster. I'm not sure if that's a reward or a risk, rather, that you would want to take. I think Kyrie Irving will be more of a low risk, high reward type of play to give Anthony Edwards some help. Zay, I'll let you go, man.
There we go. Both of you guys are extremely right in terms of the additions that the Timberwolves need. I just don't think it's another star. I don't think they need a second star buddying with Anthony Edwards. I think they need to round out the role players on this team. They had it right the first time when you had a bevy of role players around Anthony Edwards, and they were climbing up. You have to build that team. You have to build a team the correct way. You have to look at the Spurs as a blueprint, how you have the star player at the top and you're rounding it out with young role players who could fill a star role if need be, but you need role players around it to work. They brought in De'Aaron Fox, and De'Aaron Fox, if you look at him in terms of how he plays, he doesn't play like a star player. Doesn't play like a superstar. He plays like a guy just there for a role, playing his role as a guard, playing his role in his part. You need guys that know their part on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just don't think you bring in Giannis, he's going to play the part. He's going to be the system. Now you have to ask Anthony Edwards, who's supposed to be your franchise player, to play a part in his young career, and Giannis Antetokounmpo in the hopes that he brings you to an NBA championship. I don't think that's the right way to go about it in terms of Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards is a premier talent in this league, top 5 if you want to make a severe argument. You can make the argument he is a top 5 guy. You put him at the top of the pyramid, and you fill out the rest of the foundation, because that's what they've been missing, foundation players. Players that do the gritty work, players that know how to play make, the high IQ guys, the vets mixed in with the rookies, knowing how to get that mix and blend. And you have to look at that Spurs team. You have to look at that OKC team as blueprints. How do I get this team like this? You draft well, you develop well, you bring in veteran guys to help assist in development. So I don't think you go all in for Giannis. You went all in for Rudy Gobert. Did not work. Do not go all in again for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Leel,
Go ahead,
you
Lee.
guys are forgetting. And by the way, Giannis is 31 years old, Leel. He's not 35. He's 31.
Yeah, my bad.
And so I think we're forgetting what Giannis is. Jaden McDaniels, you can have him all day, every day, if I could get Giannis. And the pressure that a motivated Giannis puts on the league is like none other. That's a great, great player who has been stymied the last couple of years by what's been around him in Milwaukee. Giannis and Ant would be tremendous, and it would elevate them. Look, DiVincenzo, nobody's going to want him because he's coming off of that Achilles, so he'll still be there. You know, Randall can go, McDaniels can go. I would hope that you could keep Naz Reid, excellent role player, but you can fill out a roster. The little point guard, D, whatever his name is, he's pretty good. But Giannis is a difference maker, and a motivated, healthy Giannis Antetokounmpo for Minnesota would change the dynamics of the Western Conference if he's playing with Anthony Edwards, because all that blitzing of Anthony Edwards that you saw them do every game, no, you can't do that with Giannis on the court. And that's a different mentality. Minnesota doesn't even have an offense, really. They don't run offense. It's all one-on-one basketball, and it's all if Ant get hot, they're in the game. That's a totally different game with Giannis there. So I disagree. I think they should go all in and get this guy.
I mean, look, Giannis is a good player, fit wise. I just don't think you want to take the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands. You know, I think my ideal, co-star for that team would have been Kevin Durant, because he's not stopping the ball. He can play within the system. He can obviously generate offense and do what he does best, but he doesn't stop the ball movement. You know, the Warriors won chips before he came along. He fit right in there. He fit right in anywhere. So Giannis, I don't believe he has that fit. So taking the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. But let me know what y'all think. Should the T-Wolves go all in for Giannis? And we'll keep it moving. Now we're going to make a jump in the NFL here. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers on a 1-year deal. We all knew that was going to happen. We just knew it was going to take long, per usual. Typical Rodgers theatrics there. Did the Steelers get it right by re-signing Aaron Rodgers? And Lee, the mic is yours.
I mean, they had no choice, really. I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to run the Howard kid out there. You're not going to let the quarterback from Penn State start for you. So, as usual, Rodgers had them over a barrel. And, he still can throw the football. That's not an issue. is the fact that when teams with good defenses put pressure on him, then that's when you see an old man playing quarterback and not just a guy with arm talent. So they had to sign him. Everybody knew this was going to happen. When we talk about the schedule, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I think the Steelers is one team that made the playoffs last year that's going to miss it this year because I don't think they've done enough. I think they're an aging team, and I think Aaron Rodgers is aging right along with them. And so, I think they had to re-sign him. I don't think much of the signing, and I don't think much of what the Steelers will be this year.
Zay, talk to me.
I just don't understand Pittsburgh's thought process from coaching hire, from their offensive standpoint to QB. I had a Pittsburgh Steelers fan tell me that he would rather see his team crumble to the ground and rebuild the proper way we get top draft picks than to stay mediocre season after season after season, even if it's a winning season, even if it's a playoff appearance. He would rather be horrible for 10 years than to continue seeing mediocrity. And I understand the reasoning, but as a Jets fan, I told him, you don't want to do that. you don't want to do that. You don't want to keep losing that like the way the Jets been losing and for 20 plus years. But listen, I say this. Like Lee Jones said, their Steelers had no other option. You brought in Mike McCarthy after the Mike Tomlin firing, right? You had an opportunity to really start off fresh, bring in a young coach, somebody who could have been anybody. You had an opportunity to start from the beginning, and you chose to stay with Mike McCarthy to stop the bleeding, right? To stop the bleeding. That's what you brought in. So you brought in Mike McCarthy, and now you have no other hope but to bring in Aaron Rodgers. Because if Rodgers says, I retired, what is the plan? There is no other quarterback that can work with Mike McCarthy in a system that he likes like that other than Aaron Rodgers. And this is what you have to go through. The Steelers put themselves in another pickle, hoping that Rodgers will come back. This reality show with McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers returns. It's like Jersey Shore when they came back. It's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be just like the old times. It's not the old times, man. We living on memory lane right now. They won one chip. You bringing back the coach and the QB tandem thinking everything's gonna change. Absolutely not. We forgot that this is the same tandem that had all the prima donna locker room issues happening because the coach put the quarterback way above everyone else. So what you think is gonna happen here? What is the thought process gonna happen here when the quarterback goes back with his inflated ego to a Steelers team that's not ready to win? It's despicable. The Steelers used to be a high-class organization. What happened? What changed? So that's just my take. I just don't think the Steelers are really knowing what they're doing. They're going to start looking like the Giants very soon with a lot of questionable decisions and not knowing what the heck is going on.
You mentioned a good point, actually, Zay. I'm not sure you even recognize how you just landed that plane because I was going in it totally. I mean, I agree with everything you said, but my brain was getting ready to reiterate what you just said, but you just literally landed a plane in a way that I exactly want to pick up from because I don't even think you know what you did. It's like creating Facebook. I didn't know that I created, what was going to be the next big thing, right? You just created Facebook, Zay. Okay, because when you look at that point about the Giants, right? Prime example. They had Tom Coughlin. They won a championship, right? There was a class organization, right? They won 2. They beat my guy Tom Brady in 2 Super Bowls and whatnot. But then they lost a little bit. Then they got draft picks. Then they got their head coach recently in John Harbaugh after losing last season. And now they building a team that everybody's hype about, that everybody's saying, oh, this is going to be the trendy pick for them to not make the playoffs and then make the playoffs next year. Everybody's picking them. They got primetime love. We about to talk about schedule. All right. I'm pretty sure they're going to come up. Okay. That's because they had to take an L before they could get a W. And that's something that the Steelers refuse to acknowledge. The worst place you want to be in any sport, I don't care if it's the NBA or the NFL, is a team that's good enough to obviously not have a losing season, right? And possibly make the playoffs, but bad enough to the point where you can't win a championship. That's the worst place to be in professional sports. That is purgatory right there. And the Steelers was in purgatory for years. And look, I understand I came at Mike Tomlin a lot. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that guy. Okay, I'm a big fan of him. I understand I didn't always see eye to eye with his philosophy. Obviously, I hope he's enjoying retirement. He's going to be great on TV. But
Yeah.
after a while, it got stale. Point blank, period. Okay. And he saw that it wasn't going nowhere. So he said, you know what? Let me take a step back and leave because we are not going nowhere. That is the organizational cue for y'all to make it do what it do and embrace the inevitable rebuild. Okay. Embrace the fact that, okay, we could get a young coach instead of this Mike McCarthy. What is Mike McCarthy going to do? This guy been he didn't win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. He didn't win a Super Bowl. He won one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers long time ago. You want to bring that up? Really? How many years had Aaron Rodgers been in the league since then and didn't win nothing? Come on, bro. I understand he looked all right last year, but come on, he's not doing nothing. You're not winning the championship. So you're not winning the championship, then what are we doing here? All right, what's really going on here? Are you too lazy, Mr. Art Rooney, because you know you about to pack it up? You know the world's crazy. There's pandemics. You know AI gonna take everybody's jobs. So you just like, you know what? Hey, the country is going down to shit anyway. So you know what? I care about what the Steelers do. So let me go back in my cave and just hire Mike McCarthy. Come on. Or maybe Mike McCarthy did what he did, the con man that he is. You know, had them puppy dog tears in a daggone interview, and you fell for it. Needless to say, it should have been an inevitable rebuild. They didn't. But because they hired Mike McCarthy, but because they still act like they're in win now mode by signing guys like Michael Pittman Jr. to go alongside DK Metcalf, you do have to bring back Aaron Rodgers because of that. And that's why, you know, you just leave with that complex answer. And yeah, we're going to move on here. We're going to keep it right along. We're going to wrap up this topic with our biggest takeaway from the NFL schedule release. And whoever want to go first, by all means.
I'll jump in there. Look, couple things for me. New England, 6th hardest schedule. Green Bay, 4th hardest schedule. Kansas City, 5th hardest schedule. Green Bay and Kansas City, I don't think they make the playoffs this year, Leo. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I think their schedules are as such that, you know, with Parsons, we don't know when he's going to come back for Green Bay, and they look like a shell of themselves last year. And then with Kansas City, same thing with the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. You don't know what they're going to be, and they still haven't addressed their wide receiver position. And I didn't particularly love their draft, even though they did go all defensive. So I don't think that's going to happen. And then the other thing that I took from the schedule release and looking at it, I think there are 2 playoff teams in both conferences that will not make it. I think in the AFC, Jacksonville won't make it, and I think Pittsburgh won't make it. I think they're out. I think Baltimore is in on that side. And then on the NFC, I think San Francisco won't make it. And I think Green Bay won't make it. I think Dallas and Minnesota is in. So and looking at the schedules, Dallas has a 20th ranked schedule. The Ravens have the 24th ranked schedule based off of last year. So I like a bounce back year from the Ravens. I like what the Cowboys did in the drafts. So they have the 20th schedule. I think they're set to make a move, but it just looks like some of the teams that have question marks are some of those traditional teams, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Green Bay. I don't think they're going to do anything. And then I look for the Vikings. To take a giant step up with Kyler Murray at quarterback. And so those are my takeaways from the schedule release.
I would say this takeaway number one, the NFL is just trying to dominate the entire.
They always do, Leo. They always do.
It's just like, all right, we might as well have games Monday through Friday at this point. I mean, it's trending that way, Monday through Sunday rather. Okay, soon it's going to be a game every single day of the week. Like, I just won't be surprised because you got games on Wednesday now, Thursday. I mean, the game just keeps on monopolizing when it comes to streaming, when it comes to just, you know, anything else in existence. But I will say this. My biggest takeaway would, you know, one thing that caught my eye rather, right? Because I haven't really got to digest everybody's schedule because guess what? I've been so busy in my schedule that, you know, I haven't really got to digest every single thing. I've seen a lot, but I would say looking at New England and everything they got going on right now with Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel. I'm not even sure if Mike Vrabel is going to coach and be the head coach of the Patriots week 1, but that's another topic of conversation. A lot of distraction, a lot of noise with that messy situation that can trickle down into the football team this year. But then you look at their schedule. I mean, the first 4 games, week 1, right off the gate, play the team that beat you in the Super Bowl. How about you go to Seattle, play them right away? And yeah, they might have AJ Brown then, because I do believe AJ Brown is going there. But yeah, you got to go to Seattle. Then week 2, you got the Steelers. Not going to be an easy opponent, even at home. Then you got to go to Jacksonville. Then you got to go to Buffalo. That's your first 4 games. So you got all this noise and all this distraction that possibly could get even worse. I mean, it's hard to say get worse. It's already bad. And then you got the first 4 games that every team here had a winning record last year. Every team here had a winning record last year, okay? I may sound like a broken record, but they had a winning record, okay? You feel me? All right? And I look at the schedule, they might start off 1-3. Like, New England's going to have to work. You hear that term when teams lose the Super Bowl, it's hard to get back there. Yeah, good luck with those first 4 games. It's going to be tough. So that's my biggest takeaways. Look at New England. I'm looking at them more directly. I'm looking at them with all this noise. I'm looking at them with the AJ Brown trade. I'm looking at their schedule right out the gate. We'll see how they are. We'll see their testament.
You know, I think what Lil made great points about teams you want to look at with a magnifying glass. And one of those teams is the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, we talk about how great Justin Herbert is. We're going to find out how good he is or great he is week 3 to week 17, because that schedule is disgusting. Week 1 and 2 is Arizona and the Raiders. Week 3 down is one of the more difficult gauntlets you'll see out of any team in that stretch of a span. You have Buffalo, at Seattle. You play Denver at home. You go against Kansas City on a Sunday afternoon game. Bye week, then you see the Rams. You go against Houston. You play Baltimore at Baltimore primetime. You go against the Jets. You go against the Patriots at home. You play Tampa and the Raiders on the road. You go against San Fran. You go against Miami. Then you see Kansas City and Denver to close out your season. There's not many games for error there. So you're going to have to take away a lot of wins from dominant teams like Denver, from Seattle, from New England, to try to make that playoff run. And I don't know if Justin Herbert has that guy. I don't know if you could put him in a situation where there's no star receiver and expect him to make magic. Like, we know he has the intangibles to be a good quarterback, but you need a star guy in that system in order to see his true potential as a great quarterback in this league. Right now, he's a good quarterback. He can make, guys who are so-so into solid players, but you need that star. Ladd McConkey had a shaky season throughout the entirety of the year, right? You put him in a slot, you put him in an X, but you put him in all these different places, but he wasn't making those marquee plays time in and time out. Maybe because of the different coverages, maybe because of X, Y, and Z, but it's shown us he's not the true wide receiver 1 you want on your team. You need a guy who could dominate in any coverage, a guy no matter what they throw at you who's going to get that ball. Because Ladd McConkey was open a lot of times, but Herbert, for whatever reason, looked away from him, or that pass was dropped by McConkey. So
he was getting hit. He was running for his life in that pocket too. I mean, Herbert didn't really have time to breathe.
It's going to be interesting what happens there with that Chargers team.
Yeah, they lost both of their tackles last year. They'll have them back. I think the Chargers, Harbaugh is a defense and run the ball type of coach. He protects Herbert a lot in their offense. He protects them a lot, and by getting those tackles back, it may help them. But I'm with you. Herbert has a lot to prove as an NFL quarterback. He everybody loves him. They love on him, but look at his record in the playoffs. Look at his overall regular season record. This past year, was decent, but he has a lot to prove. But I do think the way Harbaugh coaches football, he keeps them in the games by running the football, playing good defense, and so the Chargers have a chance. And Leel, I think if New England gets AJ Brown, I think they're a wild card team. I think Buffalo's gonna take that division back, but I think if New England gets AJ Brown, because they're another team that's going to play defense, they're going to run the football. But if they have a big time receiver in AJ Brown, I think they can win enough to get to the wild card. And then my last take is, watch out for Cincinnati getting in the playoffs as a wild card.
Yeah, I think the Chargers need to intervene and try to steal AJ Brown from New England. I think they could to add on to Zay's point, I think they should be that team that, sneaks right in there and get Justin Herbert some help. Yeah, good points all around. Good topics all around, NBA, NFL, and I am definitely looking forward to this game that's already underway. And Zay, it was good to have you back on. Lee, was good to have you again. And to the next time, this is the Real Lil Show. We'll be back for another episode next week. We'll be out, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
Sports, politics, conspiracy theories. We are here to give you our unique perspectives on things happening in the world. It's the one and only, The Real Lil on The Real Lil Show.